Please welcome to the stage our moderator, Amanda Sturgeon, CEO, the Biomimicry Institute.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're very excited to be here to share with you the brilliance of nature and for you to learn more about how we can innovate and create new businesses and solutions to the many challenges that we face by learning from the 3.8 billion years of evolution in nature. I'm the CEO of the Biomimicry Institute. At the Institute, we work to provide inspiration around the brilliance of nature through our asknature.org platform. I encourage you to take a look if you want to be inspired by the brilliant sort of systems and functions of nature and how we might be able to innovate with them. We've also today released Chat Nature, so you can play around with that a little bit and ask nature questions, and you'll get back some answers from our founder, Janine Benyus, in that style, because we've fed the Biomimicry book into the back of it. So I encourage you to play around with that. At the Biomimicry Institute, we also, as well as provide inspiration, we are responsible for creating that inspiration and then turning it into innovation. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. We've been running a program called the Ray of Hope Accelerator now for about 7 years. We've had the honor of helping about 60 companies from 12 different countries in the world. 35% are women-owned, which we love, to help get from their seed stage towards Series A. All of these companies have incredible innovations that are based on some brilliance of nature, and you're going to hear from 2 of them today about their product and their business. And our role is to really help accelerate, provide resources. We provide a nature immersion for those companies, and then we ideally connect them to investors and to funding as well. So I'm going to introduce our speakers in a little bit more detail than the slide. Next to me is Amal Kohadas. He's the CEO of Compare. And Compare also has a demonstration of their product out at the Action Speaks booth out here, if you want to learn more about it. Amal is from Switzerland. He has a PhD in self-healing composites. So you'll learn more about what that is in a little bit. Next to me is Jie Son, who's the CEO of A New Material, and she's part of our 2025 Ray of Hope Accelerator team, so fresh into the program. She has a PhD in materials chemistry, and she's based in New York. And then lastly, we'll hear from Chris Allen, and Chris is the Global Principal for Nature Positive Solutions for Jacobs, global engineering business. He's based in California. And Chris is one of the people that's been working with Biomimicry the longest that I know. Biomimicry professional and really working hard to integrate Biomimicry into all kinds of interesting projects that I'm sure we'll hear more about in a minute. So I'm going to just start with a question which each of our panelists are going to answer in turn. I'd love you each to tell us more about your nature-inspired solution and how nature inspired your business and the solution of innovation that's behind your business. So Amal, I'll start with you.
Thanks a lot for the intro, and that's a pleasure to be here also in front of you today. I think this is not anymore in the picture here that you will see on the slides, but I'm sure it's going to come back while maybe I start a short intro. So we are coming from Compare, from Switzerland, and actually we were part of the Ray of Hope program as well 2 years ago, and it was such a great pleasure also to be in line with nature-inspired solution and to be aligned also of how can we bring nature more at the forefront and to advance also globally the world that we are in. And so at Compare, what we do, we are specifically focusing on composite materials. And the composites is the famous carbon that you see quite a lot into your everyday life, like in your bicycles or in some sporting goods equipment, but they are highly used as well into mobility applications, into aeronautical, into space, into energy, into plenty of industrial applications. And the problem with those materials is that they microcrack really easily during their lifetime. And today there is no solutions to repair them globally. And or the solutions are barely happening, and it takes really a lot of time and also a lot of money behind that. So what people do mostly is that they throw away the parts and they consider those materials as consumables. And then 90% of composites today are not recycled. So what we've been doing at Compare, and this was also the follow-up of my PhD thesis in Switzerland at the Polytechnic School, we worked a lot on self-healing materials. Self-healing materials have been also worked a lot over the past years, since the years 2000, and it gets the inspiration from nature. And specifically, so does anyone knows the name of this plant that you have here on the screen? It's called Ficus elastica. And actually, this plant has the capacity, when there is a cut in there, to regenerate itself by nature. And so the question behind that was, how can we apply the same principle to what the plant is doing to actual materials? A link to that, I like to speak also about the human body, and the following paradox that I really like to put in front is that you have maybe a bicycle at home, you change it every 3 years, everyone has a cell phone, you change it every year, and even your car, you change it every 5 years or a bit more. But in the end, all of us, human body, we are able to live for 80 years. And so the nature has been adapting itself also to create the human body that has the capacity to live for 80, 100 years, I hope, as well. But on top of that, the nature and the planet we're living on has the capacity to live for billions of years. So in the end, how can we inspire, and specifically from there, to extend the lifetime of the products and to enable an autonomous repair specifically applied for us in the case of composite materials?
Amazing, thank you. All right, let's hear from you, GA. How has nature inspired your business and your startup?
Yeah, thank you, Amanda, and thank you to the Biomimicry Institute and Action Speaks for having me here. At A New Material, we make plant-based water-resistant coatings that can replace plastics in beauty, in textiles, and in packaging. And to explain how that got started, I need to go a little bit deeper into my origin story. And so, how many of you guys go into a nail salon to get your nails done? And you smell nail polish, right? And that distinctive smell is actually the release of volatile organic compounds that are known to be irritants for your skin and lungs. And with long-term exposure, nail technicians are 3 times more likely to have babies born with birth defects. And so I used to work in a nail salon for over 10 years before getting my PhD in materials chemistry. And then when I dug deeper into, what is nail polish made of? What does it smell like this? And why is it so bad for you? I found out it's a 100-year-old industry. It was invented as car paint, and it is a hazardous material and forms microplastic pollution. And so I asked, why don't we design a polish that's meant for our nails instead of cars? And so I looked to nature for those answers, and nature already does this so well. And all of us have this extremely durable protective barrier at the end of our fingertips, our nails. And these are keratin proteins that are stacked on top of each other to give this strength and durability and water resistance. I have the picture of the sloth here to model their beautiful long nails. And so using keratin, the natural protein that our nails are made of, that is what inspired us to create the architecture behind the coating and the chemistry to scale into different types of coatings.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. I love the sloth. You'll notice we've got natural images behind us so that you can see sort of where some of these innovations have been inspired from. All right, over to you, Chris. Going to ask the same question. A little bit different, though, in terms of you obviously not doing a startup. You're working in a large global business, and you've got a long history with biomimicry. So how has nature inspired your work?
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks to the Nest Climate Campus for inviting me to talk. Jacobs, we're a large technical solutions engineering company, about 40,000 people globally, 250 offices. My role is to bring nature-positive and nature-based solutions into our large-scale civil infrastructure and across the various markets that we serve, from transportation to advanced manufacturing, healthcare, a range of industries. So we partner with Biomimicry 3.8, and Nicole Miller happens to be in the audience. She's the CEO. We're also building a collaboration with the Biomimicry Institute to guide the way that we bring nature-positive solutions into the various engineering, architecture, landscape architecture, material science, and data science that we do for large-scale engineering projects. We use a framework called the Project Positive framework, and what we're doing is learning how to study ecosystems and organisms and mimic their function in the built environment. A lot of the ways that we've been building for the last 100 years, we're basically overlaying our buildings and structures over natural systems with very little regard for how the underlying ecosystem works. So how do we use biomimicry and nature-inspired design to take the ecological intelligence of a place that can inform our architects, engineers, and landscape architects, data scientists, and others to build in a different way? And that's why we have the butterfly here. It's a symbol of transformation. So how do we use ecological intelligence and biomimicry to rethink and reimagine the way that we do the built environment?
Amazing work that you're all doing. I'd like to get your thoughts on how we might be able to transform business. I know we have a lot of people from business around New York Climate Week. What would business look like if we were to learn from nature? Have you got some thoughts on that?
It's a really interesting question. And maybe I'm going to retake what I've been listening to yesterday evening. I was at an event from the Planetary Embassy, also further downtown, from the Embassy of Switzerland. And there was a professor from New York University, Becca Frank, I think that's her name, who was mentioning specifically that, nature has been adapting for billions of years right now. And actually we had some extensions already. And this will happen. And this will happen again, but the nature is adapting to itself. And so now looking at that, it's just that it takes time. And if we look at how nature would lead a business, I would say the speed would be different. The speed would be different, but in the end, the nature is so efficient and had this capacity of adapting itself, whereas today we're not able to reach such capacity, that we should think in the way nature is doing and has been doing for billions of years right now. And this links, so we are a young company growing quite a lot with different customers coming on, and I believe we have the opportunity to discuss a bit that after, but we are currently dependent on investment. And what we see through our business is that investors want to have an ROI in 3, 4, or 5 years. But what has been really interesting since a few years now is that there are different typologies of investors that come with evergreen funds, that come with longer-term investment, and that actually now, after some years, we have a bit of feedback and have the capacity to take a step back, saying, okay, if we take a bit more time and we do investments that are a bit more in the longer term, specifically for startups, the startup will perform way better. And I think that's how nature can inspire also to lead business. It doesn't mean that we need to think in an investment of over 100 or 150 years, but it means that we need to take a bit more time and to think a bit more longer term than just having now all the solutions now and for tomorrow. We need to make step by step, and I think that's how also nature is here and what we can do also with those solutions.
Yeah. Do you want to answer?
I love that. And I wanted to speak more on like the efficiency of nature and how very specific key interactions is what you need to make something happen instead of this very general approach and one size fits all. Because I did my PhD in peptide materials chemistry, and like, for example, a protein, right? It's a string of amino acids, like a pearl necklace, but when placed in water, it spontaneously forms this 3D structure, which now gives it function as an enzyme, a protein. And so those are very specific interactions that nature has designed over many, many, many years and R&D resources and capital. And by learning from those key interactions, that's what we're trying to implement into our coating, so that the coating itself, the material itself, as well as how it interacts with different substrates, is based on those key interactions that make sense through chemistry. And this, we were making the first and only water-based and microplastic-free nail polish. We're starting here, but we can scale that into coatings for industrial grade or for textiles and packaging. And this would be a game changer for this $15 billion nail polish industry. So using water-based chemistry, that would mean less waste during production. It would mean safer manufacturing because we don't have these flammable, volatile chemicals that you're handling, so less risk. And then it would also unlock this shipping capability, because currently these VOC-based products are considered hazardous materials, and so you don't have this capability. And so all in all, by learning from nature, I think we've created a industry where we can transform the industry to be safer, to be lower cost, and more effective. Yeah.
Amazing. Chris?
When I envisioned businesses led by nature, I recall the famous Louis Armstrong song, "What a Wonderful World It Would Be." One of the things that we use and that we look to is a framework called Life's Principles that Biomimicry 3.8 developed. And these are the ways in which organisms and systems have survived and thrived over millions, if not billions of years. And so we see the organisms that are successful now in the ecosystem have been around for a long time. They adhere to these life's principles. Most of our business activities now do not do that. That's why we as a civilization are facing some of the really difficult problems that we face. One of the key ones is circularity. In nature, we don't see a linear production of anything. Everything is circular. So in our industrial process, we have we take things, we make it through heat, beat, and treat, and then we waste it, right? We don't see anything like that in nature. So what would civilization, what would business look like if we were truly circular and regenerative, where we had regenerative natural capital as part of our production process? I think it would change everything. So that would be one of the biggest leadership moves I think we could make in business.
Yeah, and a term we use in Life's Principles and in Biomimicry Institute is creating conditions conducive to life. If that was the principle of business, it would look a lot different from the extractive sort of processes that we see often. So we've learned through doing this accelerator and trying to support innovators over the last 6-7 years that it requires an ecosystem. And you already touched on the need for investors, for example, and different types of capital, less sort of, short tech returns and more sort of long-term investment to scale manufacturing systems. But also there's a need for corporates to jump into the innovation space, and many of them are, such as L'Oreal, for example, that have, been a partner of the Ray of Hope program. But we need, the sort of a whole ecosystem to engage in this world of innovation. So I would love to hear from all of you again, just on sort of how are you teaming up with organizations or companies to embed nature's principles into the whole, not just obviously the amazing product and innovation, but your business and leadership style and other things like that as well.
Coming back to circularity as well, and with the corporate, I think, and this will lead as well to how we are teaming up with different corporates. Right now, everyone has his own roadmap and his own roadmap on circularity. But if there is something that we can learn from nature, is that nature has been teaming up all together, and that there are different strategies to reach. And today, when we look at the regenerative strategies, and let's say the only famous 3R, even if there are more of them, but reduce, reuse, recycle, we hear a lot about recycling today. But actually what people forget is that, first of all, there is reduce and reuse. And this is exactly what we do at Compare. And on the reduce and reuse, one of the challenge while teaming up with corporates as well, is that the corporates have in terms of business, it's easier to focus on the recycling for now. But if we can learn from nature as well, is that the nature has been designed to last. And so that's what we need to do as well in terms of our businesses. And so while bringing new materials for the composites industry, this composites industry is really large. There are so many applications. And as a young company, we said, okay, we focus on two big pillars, sports and leisure on one side and aeronautical and mobility to get efficiency into there. And there is one good sports example that you can see outside over there at the Action Speaks exhibition. But then we're teaming up with ski companies, and for example, one public case is with Salomon as well, to bring how we can regenerate the skis and actually extend the lifetime of the skis. And believe me, there are many strategies for doing that that will make a lot of sense in terms of business as well, because people at the base, they say, but we just want to sell more. It's not the case. And there are strategies for having everyone in the supply chain happy into that as well. And then we've been teaming up as well with larger corporates, and we have also been working a lot with the European Space Agency for launcher programs, for reusable launchers, and because those are programs where innovation is there and can be applied a lot to aeronautical, and we have also in Europe different applications with aeronautical. And one last thing I wanted to say, which is also part of an event we are hosting as well on Thursday with one of our really good partner companies from Switzerland that is also here in New York, is about the watches. And I have one around my wrist in here, and everyone can ask themselves, but why is he applying those materials into watches? Actually, it's to show that things are possible. And I think big corporates as well are looking for things that are possible in terms of manufacturing. And here we've been applying it to the watch, regenerating scratches. This has an interest for the watchmaker as well. And here we are further teaming up as well with big organizations that you will know more on Thursday. But for this watch, also with the collaboration of this watch company. And this is really interesting because you can show that things are possible to do in that case. And just let me finish on that. You may ask yourself, how is it possible that they regenerate the materials and how does it work? It can seem magic. There is a nice workshop also this afternoon on biomimicry, and we brought a demo, so feel free to pass by in the room upstairs as well, because we will be able to do a live demo.
Yeah, we've partnered with a retailer called Credo Beauty, and they are setting very high standards for clean beauty in the US, where it's not as regulated like in other continents like EU or Asia. And having a corporate partner like that who really believes in our vision from the early stage, right? I've been talking to them earlier this year. We only have a prototype. We don't have a product yet. But having someone believe in us from the corporate side just means it brings validation, market credibility, and also knowing that we're not doing this alone in silo, right? So I can bring the innovation as a product, but then to distribute that to the wider supply chain, I can't do that alone. I can't do that as a startup alone. And so corporate and other partnerships are so essential in what we're doing. And programs like Ray of Hope Accelerator, which I've been honored to be part of this year. I'll be joining 9 other startups in the Catskills. On Friday, we're heading out right after Climate Week. And we're going to forest bathe and learn from nature and design our companies in the woods. So having that, this collaborative energy, and everyone is just so willing to share and learn from each other and share resources has been a really wonderful experience, because doing a startup is really hard. And I think if I were to do it alone, I don't think I would have made it. So I'm very happy to be part of this wonderful nature-inspired ecosystem. Thank you.
I mentioned we're working on a framework called Project Positive, Biomimicry 3.8 developed. One of the key partners is a small technology company called Ecometric Solutions Group, and they developed a tool called the Ecosystem Intelligence Platform. We're teaming with them, they're small but mighty, on helping us develop the metrics and the measurement, reporting, and verification that's needed. So when we build something, we can understand the ecosystem services performance that we want to drive towards. Then over time, how is this building or this infrastructure performing against those original metrics? So part of that too is studying a reference ecosystem that's nearby the place where we're building, and we understand what's going on in terms of water infiltration, pollinator plants, carbon sequestration, a whole range of ecosystem services. This tool enables us to bring that in early into the design part of our process where we're doing conceptual design, and we can iterate and tweak our design so we can optimize for ecosystem services performance in that particular design. And that's a really unique time in a project, because absent that, we tend to go to business as usual design. So it's a really important part of using data and using decision analysis type of tools that helps us drive towards this biomimetic performance in the built environment.
Amazing. Yeah, and what we're seeing is that more and more companies, more and more investors are joining this ecosystem. We've just got a snapshot of it today. Encourage you to go to our website where we have an impact report on the Ray of Hope program that was issued last year that talks about the different companies, the parts of the UN SDGs that they're addressing, and you'll see it's quite diverse and gives you a better sense of the kind of whole ecosystem of nature-inspired startups. And as you mentioned, this year we are bringing together our Ray of Hope companies for a nature immersion in the Catskills. We did that last year for the first time as well, so that our startups also feel supported and connected to others. So there was a few things I wanted to wrap up that I heard, and I think the QR codes will get you to those links. But I just wanted to wrap up what I heard, especially both of you say is that, nature is efficient. It doesn't have waste, it has nutrient cycles, and it adapts quickly. I think the question that we ask ourselves at the Institute is that, can we model nature to adapt quickly to the changing climate that's emerging, to the changing landscape of resources that will be struggling potentially to resource in the coming decade? How can we learn from nature to be adaptive, to be resilient, and can we truly create conditions conducive to life with life's principles that really does underpin the future of business and the future of innovation? We're really grateful for IKEA Action Speaks to be sort of collaborating with us. You can see some of the companies through the Ray of Hope program in the Action Speaks display out here, and also on their website as well as on our website if you'd like to learn more about them. I do just also want to say we are doing a workshop later, so if you would like to know a little more and give the Chat Nature tool that I mentioned, the Ask Nature Chat tool, a bit of a trial, we are going to do a workshop later, I believe it's on the 4th level, where we will explore nature-based solutions using a Chat Nature tool to figure out how can nature sort of teach us about new inspiration and innovation. So encourage you to join us there. I believe that's at 2 o'clock. Looking for some confirmation there, but I think it is. And I just, lastly want to send apologies. Joanne Rodriguez from Mycocycle, which is an incredible product, who had a family emergency, wasn't able to join us, but I do encourage you to check out Mycocycle's product as well. It's quite an incredible mycelium-based product that mimics how nature decomposes waste to create new nutrients and new products. So it's a wonderful full circle demonstration from them. And with that, I'd like to thank our panelists and thank you to the Nest for hosting us today. Thank you.